Have you ever noticed that men often seem to live in silence? They don't talk about how they feel. They don't explain what they do. They don't show what's really going on in their heads. And then, on the other side, you try to imagine, does he not care? Does he not think about me? Does he feel nothing? But here's the truth. Male silence is not empty. When a man doesn't speak, he continues to think. And most of the time, those thoughts hide things that are never said out loud. Things that reveal his greatest insecurities, his deepest desires, and even his greatest fears. Imagine the following. You're with him, at dinner, or just on the living room couch. He's quiet, staring into space. You ask, "What are you thinking about?" And he responds with the classic phrase, "Nothing." But I can assure you this nothing hides much more than it seems. Men have a different way of dealing with their feelings. They learned from an early age that showing emotion is a sign of weakness. They hear phrases like, "Men don't cry," "Swallow your tears," "Be strong," and with that, they learn to keep quiet. But the mind does not remain silent. It is in this outward silence that the strongest thoughts begin to appear. Throughout this video, I'm going to show you what goes on behind the scenes of that silence. I'm going to tell you what really goes through a man's mind when he's quiet, what he feels but doesn't say, what he thinks but prefers to keep to himself, and most importantly, how you can understand these hidden signs and discover, once and for all, the untold secrets of the male mind. If you've ever wondered why he doesn't reply to your messages when you expect him to, why he disappears at important moments, or why he seems distant even when he's by your side, stay with me until the end. Because here you will discover that male silence is, in fact, a language. A hidden language, but one that, when understood, can give you all the answers you've always wanted. This video is not about trying to guess what he's thinking. It's about learning to see beyond what he says, or what he doesn't say. It's about entering the male mind and finally understanding the codes that guide his behavior. In the next few minutes, you'll be surprised to notice that many attitudes that previously seemed cold or indifferent actually hide deep feelings, and that behind the silence there is a man full of doubts, fears, desires, and even weaknesses. So get ready, because from now on, we're going to dive into the male mind together. And I promise you one thing, after watching this video, you'll never look at a man's silence the same way again. When a man chooses to remain silent, it doesn't mean he has nothing to say. Most of the time, it's just the opposite. He has so much inside him that he doesn't know how to put it into words. The male mind is like a locked safe. From the outside, you only see a locked, cold door that reveals nothing. But inside, there are emotions, insecurities, memories, and even fears that he avoids sharing. For many men, silence acts as a protective shield. From an early age, society teaches men to hide their emotions. When they cry as children, they often hear phrases like, "Swallow your tears," "Be strong," "You can't show weakness." These phrases, repeated for years, create a dangerous idea that talking about feelings is weakness. Thus, when they grow up, many men already carry a barrier within themselves. They feel, but they don't talk. They suffer, but they don't share. They love, but they don't show it. And this invisible wall creates the silence that you so often notice. Another important point is that silence is also a way of organizing thoughts. Many men don't speak right away because they need time to understand what they are feeling. Unlike many women who find relief in talking, men tend to seek answers within themselves. They shut themselves off, think, analyze, and only then decide if it's worth putting into words. But here's the most curious detail. This internal process can take hours, days, or even never be said. And it's not because they don't feel it, but because they believe that showing it can bring judgment, rejection, or even loss of respect. Psychology shows that men experience a double emotional pressure. On the one hand, society demands that they be strong and independent. On the other, the feelings that remain alive within them. The result? They create a world of silence as a way to protect themselves. This silence, however, should not be confused with coldness. In fact, when a man is quiet, it is often because he is thinking about something serious. He may be imagining the future, worrying about bills, reliving insecurities, or even trying to find the best way not to hurt you with words spoken in the heat of the moment. Behind the nothing he says there may be doubt about whether he is good enough for you, the fear of losing what he has already built, the insecurity of not living up to your expectations, or just the effort to hide the weaknesses he has carried since childhood. Understanding the psychology of male silence is like opening the door to a safe. It is realizing that for men, Talking can hurt. Putting what they feel into words takes courage, and many have never learned to do that. In the next few sections, you will discover how to perceive the hidden signs in his behavior. You will learn to notice when silence is just reflection, and when, in fact, it hides something much heavier. And above all, how not to get lost in assumptions, but to use this understanding to create a real connection with the male mind. Because believe me, what he doesn't say can reveal much more than what he does say. If male silence is a safe, inside it there are secrets that are almost never revealed. And not because they don't exist, but because many men simply don't know how to put their feelings into words. Now I want to open that safe for you and show you the most common secrets that most men keep silent. First secret, the fear of not being good enough. Even when they seem confident, many men carry the question, am I good enough for her? Can I give her what she expects from me? This fear is silent but constant. Men may worry about not having enough money, not having enough status, or even not being attractive enough. But instead of saying it out loud, they prefer to remain silent and try to prove themselves with their actions, almost always in silence. Second secret, the difficulty of showing weakness. Most men are afraid of appearing vulnerable. They avoid crying in front of others, avoid admitting their insecurities, and rarely say they are experiencing emotional problems. Not because they don't trust you, but because they grew up hearing that fragility is a sign of weakness. So when they suffer, they prefer to shut themselves off and face it alone. Third secret, hidden comparisons. Even without saying so, many men are constantly comparing themselves to others. They may look at a friend's professional success, someone's body at the gym, or the way another man treats his partner and think, am I falling behind? These comparisons erode male self-esteem, but are almost never spoken aloud. They carry this burden in silence while outwardly appearing confident. Fourth secret, the pressure to maintain an image. Men feel they need to be strong, rational, protective, and even cold. But behind this mask is someone who feels fear, sadness, and doubt. Even so, they strive to maintain the facade, believing that if they let it drop, they will lose respect. Silence in this case is the armor they use to protect themselves. Fifth secret, the love they don't know how to express. Yes, many men truly love, but they don't know how to show it in words. They believe that actions speak louder than words, which is why they don't say I love you as often as you would like. But that doesn't mean they don't feel it. For them, a gesture of fixing something for you, protecting you in a difficult moment, or simply being there in silence can be the most sincere form of love. Sixth secret, thoughts of giving up. This is a delicate but real issue. Many men in moments of pressure have thought about giving up everything, their relationship, their job, their responsibilities, but they don't talk about it for fear of appearing weak. They prefer to fight in silence, even when their mind cries out for help. These secrets are not spoken, but they are there, hidden in every silence, in every distant gaze, in every pause in the middle of a conversation. Understanding this is essential to avoid falling into the trap of thinking that he feels nothing. He feels, and he feels a lot. The difference is that his language is not spoken. It is silent. In the next few sections, I will show you how to better understand this silence. You will learn to differentiate when he is just reflecting and when he is hiding something deeper. You will also learn how to transform this knowledge into connection, building a stronger relationship, where even silence becomes intimacy. Because in the end, men don't say everything, but they are always thinking. And these thoughts, even when kept to themselves, say a lot about who they really are. So far, you have understood that a man's silence is not a lack of thought. It is, in fact, a reflection of everything he feels but cannot or does not want to put into words. The big question is, how to interpret this silence without falling into the trap of imagining things that don't exist. The first step is to understand that not all silence is the same. There are different types of male silence, and each one shows a different intention or emotional state. Knowing how to differentiate between them is what will give you clarity so you don't get lost in assumptions. Silence for reflection. This is the most common. It happens when a man needs to organize his thoughts. Perhaps he is thinking about problems at work, bills to pay, or even how to solve an unexpected problem. In this case, the silence is not against you. It's just mental space he needs to get himself together. If you try to force an answer at that moment, he may feel pressured. The best attitude is to respect this time and understand that when it's over, he'll probably come back feeling lighter. Defensive silence. This one is more delicate. It arises when a man feels that speaking could lead to a fight or expose a weakness. So instead of opening up, he prefers to remain silent. It's as if silence is a shield that protects him from judgment or a fight he doesn't want to face. At times like these, insisting that he talk now can push him further away. The best thing to do is to show that you are willing to listen without pressure, so that he understands that he will not be attacked if he opens up. Silence of distancing. This is a warning sign. It appears when a man begins to disconnect emotionally, either because he is overwhelmed or because he is really losing interest. It is different from the silence of reflection, because here there is coldness and a lack of connection. He not only avoids talking but also avoids being present. Identifying this silence early on is important so as not to confuse it with temporary indifference. Silence of love. Yes, there is also silence that shows affection. Some men believe that just being by your side is already a way of showing love. Sitting close to you, sharing a simple moment without saying anything, or just watching you can be, for him, the most sincere way of being together. In this case, the silence is full of feeling, even without words being spoken. Now that you know these types, another question arises: how to interpret them without being mistaken? The key is to observe not only the lack of words, but also the body signals. The body speaks all the time, even when the mouth is silent. Observe the gaze. When he looks away or when he maintains contact, it says a lot about how he feels. Notice their gestures. Restless hands can show anxiety. Crossed arms can indicate defensiveness. Notice the proximity. If they still want to be close, the silence is not rejection, but rather silent presence. And above all, analyze the frequency. If the silence is fleeting, it is probably reflection. If it is constant and distant, it may be a sign of something more serious. Another important point: don't take every silence personally. Often a man is silent because he is dealing with internal issues that have nothing to do with you. When you understand this, you avoid creating negative stories in your head, such as, "He doesn't like me anymore," or "I'm not important." Most of the time, silence says more about him than it does about you. And here's a secret from psychology. Men tend to open up much more when they feel emotionally secure. If you create a space where he understands that he can speak without being judged, interrupted, or criticized, little by little, his silence will turn into words. Therefore, interpreting male silence is not about forcing him to speak. It's learning to read the signs, observing gestures, and providing an environment where he feels comfortable opening his heart. In the next few minutes, I'll show you how to use this knowledge in a practical way, how to turn silence into connection, and even intimacy, creating a deeper relationship where every pause has meaning. Because in the end, it's not just about hearing words, but about learning to hear the silence. Now that you've come this far, you've realized that male silence is much more than the absence of words. It is a hidden world full of feelings, fears, insecurities, and even forms of love that are left unsaid. Behind, "I'm not thinking about anything," there is always something. And often, that something is deeper than you imagine. The truth is that men have been taught to believe that speaking is risky, that showing feelings is dangerous, and that keeping quiet is the safest way to maintain control. But this silence, when not understood, can create distance, hurt feelings, and even a sense of rejection. That's why knowing the secrets of the male mind is so powerful. When you learn to decipher the unspoken signs, you stop suffering from assumptions. You stop creating stories in your head and start seeing what really happens. And most importantly, you begin to relate to the real man in front of you, not the version that fear invents. His silence may be reflection. It may be defense. It may just be the way he has found to deal with feelings he has learned to hide. But it can also be presence, love, and care in a way that doesn't need words. And here's the final key. Don't try to change his silence. Learn to listen to what he means. When you understand this, the relationship ceases to be a guessing game and becomes a space for real connection. You realize that even in the moments when he doesn't speak, there is something to be understood. Now I want you to think, how many times have you felt lost trying to decipher a man's silence? How many times did you think it was disinterest, when in fact, it was just reflection or fear? Perhaps many, but from today on, you will no longer look at silence in the same way. You have a new perspective in your hands, a perspective that sees what's behind, that understands the hidden signs, and knows how to interpret what is not said. And if you've made it this far, I know this content was important to you. So I want to ask you two very simple things. First, share this video with someone who needs to hear this. It could be a friend who is struggling to understand her boyfriend, or someone who is unsure about their relationship. You can help that person see what is hidden in male silence. And second, subscribe to the channel right now. Activate the bell to receive notifications because every week I bring clear and direct content to help you better understand the male universe. Here, we talk bluntly about what no one explains, but what makes all the difference in your love and emotional life. Remember, silence may seem empty, but it never is. Within it are secrets, feelings, and answers that you just need to learn to decipher. And now you have the tools to do that. So don't see his silence as a wall, see it as a door. And every door can be opened as long as you know the right key. That key lies in knowledge, patience, and the wisdom to look beyond words. I hope this video has clarified points that previously seemed confusing to you. And if it made sense, leave your comment below. Tell me, have you ever been in situations where a man's silence left you confused? Share your experience, because it can help others who are going through the same thing. Thank you for staying with me until the end. And never forget, men don't say everything, but they are always thinking. It's up to you to learn to listen to what silence means.